We are dedicating the month of March to the topic of leadership. And lots of great things are happening this month. Let's see, we're just in the second week of March so far. And last week, we began to explore this idea of who each of us has come here to be. Those of you who are familiar with some of the work of Dr. Gary Simmons, either from Unity or Science of Mind, he is doing a great teaching called the Q Effect. And part of that is the art and practice of living with nothing and no one against you and discovering who you have come here to be. So last week we had a really good time with that part of this whole piece. And this week, what we're doing is just focusing on the idea of understanding our own inner leader. Now, we have a lot of experience with being guided and encouraged and getting free advice and suggestions and direction from all over. And this is about tuning in to our own inner leader. So this title, Empowering Your Inner Leader, if we break that down, first of all, we know that to empower means to give power to. Simple enough. Inner, of course, means that we're talking about something within each of us, as opposed to other sources of direction. And leader, the ideal concept of leadership, is inspired direction. Inspired, constructive, life-giving direction of some sort. So to empower your inner leader is to give power to that thing within you that knows the best way to go in any moment, right? Okay. We have some common misperceptions about those three things. We may have some ideas about our own personal power that are quite limited. They might be really conditional. Despite all the books we've read and all of the seminars that we've attended, we might still have a very limited, sometimes maybe if things are just right, I feel empowered kind of idea about our own personal power. We may have some vestiges of early teachings that say that it's really bad or wrong to think of ourselves as powerful. That's okay. We get to do this again. We get to choose something new. We may also have some ideas about what it means to go within or to be inwardly guided that are perhaps just foreign to us. How many times have we been taught as we're growing up that we should listen to the teacher or the coach or the parent, the authority, the caregiver, whomever, that there's always somebody who knows better than we do what we should be doing next. So we might have to take some time to get familiar with that inner guide. The word intuition, I believe, comes from the same roots as inner tutor. I have a niece who has a PhD in the classics, and she would tell me, but she's busy teaching that. In any case, if you imagine that you have an inner tutor, you have an inner teacher, you have your own built-in knower, that's where you're going to get the best information for you at any given time, your time, right? So the other thing is that we might have some ideas about leadership that need some cleaning up. Think about it. If you encounter the kind of people who just said, let me think, children should be seen and not heard. Do as I say, not as I do, because I said so. You ever get that one? Or whatever it is, it's because of rank or stature or some kind of hierarchy or whatever it is. The answer is because I said so. You might even have gotten in trouble for asking a question. So the concept of leadership itself, before you can embrace it and have fun with it and have some power in it, may need some redefinition. One way to do that is to look around and just see who inspires you. Who inspires you that gets people doing amazing things? It could be a volunteer project. It could be something seemingly impossible. It could be a young child who says, why not? Because he hasn't learned to doubt yet, hasn't learned to limit yet. And he says, why can't we just raise money and give it to these people and do this thing now? That's the wonderful thing about youth. They want it now. They want the ideal and they want it now. So rather than telling them to hush up, how about saying, how can I support you? And what can you teach me about remembering how to be that way? So, if your concept of leadership needs a little cleaning up, look around. I know there's inspiration all over the place. So, we're saying that to empower your inner leader means to give power to that inner leader, and that maybe you want to clean up your idea of what empowerment means, what looking within means. You may have gotten some message that taking the time to be quiet and still and go within is a waste of time when there are so many important things to do. Guess what? Even some of the scientists from a long time ago, turn of the century or whatever, I think it was Einstein, but somebody said, if you're in a crisis, the most important use of your time is to be still and know, to figure out what the best approach is. And then there's a tiny bit of time left over where you actually carry out that good idea. But you spend most of the time being very quiet, assessing the situation, and making an informed decision, and then you act. Not just like shoot now and ask questions later, okay? So, we have empower your inner leader, meaning that we're going to make sure we know what that means, and we're going to make sure that our ideas about each of those things really serve us, the highest and best that we can think of at this time. Then we have these two tools. One of these tools is perception. Now, we have 5 senses, and many of us think, well, we have 6 if you count our sensitivity to what's going on around us, our intuition. But let's just talk about 2. What you see and what you hear. If you're thinking, okay, so how do I take this into my daily life and shift my sense of my inner power and my capacity to be led and to lead in a good way? Think about what you see and what you hear. Just those 2 things, okay? You know, we actually have the capacity to look more and to see more and to get more information from our eyes than we do. What do you hear? How often do you really pay attention? How often do you really listen? Because if you make a choice to really pay attention and to really listen, you'll get more useful information, inner guidance, feedback of use, because you made a conscious choice to really listen. Now here's the other part, and that's down here. Maybe it's right here. What you decide that information means. We talked about this a little bit last week, especially in the membership class. What do I make that mean? Think about it. I'm going to give you some funny examples. One of them is from a long time ago, where I heard someone say something to me, and I decided in an instant, without any conscious thought or passage of time, what it meant, and I responded according to what I believed this person meant. I was quite wrong. I was a very young lady, and I had just moved to Fort Lauderdale, and some poor construction worker greeted me. I did not say good morning back. I said terrible things because I assumed that he was being rude because I was a female. And I was walking by, and he looked at me, and he said hello. I bit his head off. And he said, gee, I was just saying hello. I remember that to this day because all of that happened habitually. I didn't make a conscious choice. I didn't stop to think. I didn't even give it a second to realize this wonderful person was just wishing me a good morning. I imagine that he might have remembered that for a long time too. So the other one, just last Thursday, I saw tons of billowing smoke, all kinds of colors, up in the sky before I left to go for an afternoon appointment. And I thought, oh, I wonder what's burning. It must be a factory or a yacht. It must be something big, probably with fuel. Not only did I spin a story, but I started telling Rick, because I came back an hour later and it was still burning. And I decided there's no way that could be a controlled burn over there. That's got to be the yacht club. It's got to be right there on Prosperity Farms and Donald Ross. And so I had this whole story in my head about what was burning and all the terrible things that were happening. I kept looking and looking and looking. I still don't know. It's funny, because I don't tune into local radio, and I hadn't tuned into a local television station. It probably was a controlled burn that went very well, for all I know. We drove by there later. There was no, black charred anything on that corner. But in my mind, I made up this whole terrible story because I saw smoke. Okay? So we do that, don't we? And then what do? We tell other people. What happens is that what we see and what we hear, to say nothing of all of the other senses, is that we decide what it means. And we don't stop there. Then we do something. We tell other people. And they tell other people, and so on, right? Oh. And what else? We decide what we're going to do. I didn't smile at that young man. I didn't, other than feeling guilty, I didn't go apologize either. I think I probably changed my behavior towards people, construction workers saying hello, maybe by the time there, I'm not sure. But think about it. What do we do with that information? We do all kinds of stuff because we act accordingly. First we assume instantaneously, without even thinking, that our perception is true. This is what it means, and I'm going to act right away. And then afterwards, you have to go get a wheelbarrow and a dustpan and a shovel and a broom and maybe some boots and some gloves and clean it all up. That's when we're not in touch with our inner leader. That's when we haven't cleaned up our perception of people and what they say and what they do. That's when we haven't discovered that there is a better way. Now, quite possibly, at this point in all of our lives, we actually have had some wonderful practice where we either taken a class, read a book, or just said, I'm going to count to 10, maybe even 3 before I open my mouth and see how my day goes. I'm going to try to listen a little more. I'm going to try to look a little more deeply before I make a judgment. Maybe that'll help me out. That's the beginning. Because the truth of the matter is, all we have to do, if nothing else, is look a little more deeply and longer. And listen a little bit more carefully, more authentically. And remember that we have a choice as to what we make things mean. And it has a tremendous influence on what we do, on what we do with other people. And here's the kicker. Do you suppose you're surrounded by a whole bunch of other people who are doing the same thing? The answer is yes. I don't know about you, but I have this penchant for people watching, especially in the mall or at the airport. Oh, I make up all kinds of stories there. Are you kidding? I decide who's related to whom and in what way. Mother-daughter combos and couples. And I had another funny one. I don't know if I should say that. I'm going to take a chance and hope that that it goes okay. I was in an airport, and I had limited understanding of other people's religious practices and what they could and couldn't do. And I was surprised that when I went in the restroom, there were 2 Amish women texting and using electric toothbrushes. And I need to go read up. I guess I don't understand enough about that. But anyway, we walk around with these assumptions and we believe them. They dictate how we see people, how we interact with them. And what happens is we miss out on what could be happening. That's real. So the answer, of course, is to look and to listen, to remember that we're always at choice as to what things mean. And the answer is also to know that within each and every one of us, that power is already there. You don't have to go find it. You don't have to go far to find it. And also, that inner guide, each of us has one, no two exactly alike. It will never steer us wrong. We can simply practice tuning into it, trusting it, and allowing it to show us the way. And finally, there is a concept of leadership which comes from that place, whether it's how we choose to be, or someone whom we admire is choosing to be, that is inspiring. It is inspiring. Michael Beckwith says that you can either be pulled by a vision or pushed by pain, and it's your choice. So if we tap into that vision, if we learn different ways to tap into that vision, we can be pulled, and we can be moved by inspiration. We don't have to hurry because we're late, or rush because we did something wrong, or whatever, clean it up. We can have more moments that are inspired action. We can have more interactions that are inspired connections. And we can experience more of who we truly are instead of those little stories we make up. And I have a feeling the world will be a better place. So I invite you to take that home with you today. As you open your eyes, think about what that really means to see. As you listen, think about what it really means to hear. And as you catch yourself deciding in the snap of a finger or less what it means, pause and ask yourself again, what does this really mean? And see if you don't have a more empowered inner leader leading you in fantastic directions and allowing your life to be greater